1 turnovers leading to 34, 36 Boston points.
Yeah, I'm absolutely shocked by what happened tonight. I know that Boston would come out and play well. I just thought the Nets would play better. And guess what? You know, Jason Tatum, 39 points in this game. The combination of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant combined for 32. It's just not good enough. And I think, you know, there were moments in this fourth quarter early on, Boston was struggling to score. The Nets got to within 5. What happened? Jaylen Brown made a play, got a basket. Then when they cut it to 4, who came through? It was Jason Tatum. So the two guys on the Boston Celtics, Tatum and Brown, in the fourth quarter, just like they did in Game 1, just like they did in Game 2, and they did it tonight. They came through. And now you have to wonder, because we've seen Kevin Durant play too many games over his career. He's played, you know, in bigger games than this. Something's going on. I get it. Their defense is terrific, and they beat the heck out of him. I get it. But he only took 11 shots in the game. I know he had 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He's out there competing, but maybe he's worn down. Maybe they've completely worn him down. This is not the Kevin Durant that we've seen since he's put on a Brooklyn Net uniform.
You know what? I have to give one of the fans credit here. After halftime, he came up to me and he said it feels like there's 5 P.J. Tuckers on the floor for the Boston Celtics, and that's kind of what it's been like. That's
a great point. Because last year in that second-round series against the team that went on to win the championship, the Milwaukee Bucks, how about some of the games that Kevin Durant had? Like we mentioned, prior to tonight, his last playoff game here was Game 7 against Milwaukee. He put up 48 points. He didn't have Kyrie Irving. He had James Harden on one leg. So we've seen him do it where they throw the kitchen sink at him. Something's going on. I don't exactly know what it is. I get it. Ime Udoka's done a great job. And the defense for the Boston Celtics is locked in. Here's something else to keep in mind. You talked about it during the pregame. I talked about it. The Boston Celtics went 26-6 over the final 32 games. This team has been together. They've been all in all season long. The Nets at a crucial point of the season lost Kevin Durant for 21 games. Kyrie Irving with his situation, in and out of the lineup. James Harden came into camp out of shape. Then he wasn't all the way in mentally with the team. They make a huge trade. The key player of that trade has yet to play a game. So, and I think it manifests itself and it plays itself out on the court right here. There was one team that has been together all season long where they develop habits, where they know how to win close games. And what did they do tonight? They got Robert Williams back. Yeah. And he helped them. So it's just, to me, it's two teams just they're at a different place right now. The Boston Celtics have been doing this all season long, and the Nets are trying to get it all together at the most crucial time of the season.
And Steve Nash brought that up in his pregame comments. He said, you know, we're looking for consistency. Well, this season has been so fluid. To your point, Frank, the Nets only had 11 games, according to Steve Nash, where they had everybody together and everybody healthy. They just haven't had that like the Celtics have. Let's take a look now down the stretch, Frank, at some key plays from this one in the fourth quarter. Now, it started with Boston up 81-72. Kyrie Irving stops on a dime, bringing the Nets back into this, Frank. Gives it to Kevin Durant, but it seemed like the Celtics had the answer every time Seth Curry here puts Peyton Pritchard on skates and hits the shot.
But that was after they had cut it to 5 and Jaylen Brown had the layup. And Jaylen Brown in the fourth quarter, he was outstanding. And Blake Griffin gave the Nets a huge lift, but there were times when Brown was isolated on him and he made him pay. But Blake Griffin, for a guy that hasn't played in a long time, I thought he was outstanding. To come off the bench, it tells you a lot about the kind of professional he is. But look at this. That's actually pretty good defense. That's just Jaylen Brown making a better offensive play.
Yeah, we talked about it in the pregame show. Brown, just 23 points in the first quarter through the first 3 games, 45 in the second half, and he put 15 in. And here's more Brown working on Blake Griffin, getting out in the corner.
And this is when the Nets had cut it to 4. Who comes through? Jaylen Brown with the drive, kick out to Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum 3, and just like that, they extended the lead to 12.
It just seemed like every time the Nets would come to the center of the ring and throw a couple of punches, the Celtics would throw a haymaker and just take the lead back.
And I thought that was really the game right there. The foul. That was after a timeout, and the Nets were inbounding the ball, and Boston got a steal and a layup out of it, and a three-point play.
And then Al Horford with another huge shot there, putting the Celtics up 11. And now Tatum once again breaking down Patty Mills, going right to the cup and putting it in. Celtics up by 13 there.
Eventually went up by 15.
Yes.
And then for some reason, Boston wasn't defending the three-point line. At the end, it was, Seth Curry, Patty Mills.
Right.
I don't know what Boston was doing. The Nets actually had a chance there. When Bruce Brown went to the line with 22 seconds ago, they were down 6. He missed the first of 2.
Teams down 0-3 in the best of 7. They're 0 for 143. Now, I really feel uncomfortable bringing this up, but I seem to remember back in 2004 when a certain New York team had a certain Boston team down 3-0. Well, now it's time to flip the script.
That's actually not a bad point. And the other thing is, when you play game 4 on Monday, you're not winning the series if you're the Brooklyn Nets. All you're trying to do is win 1 game. There will come a point in the NBA, because in the NCAA tournament, no 16 seed had ever lost, 16 had ever beaten a 1. It happened. There's going to come a point when a team that trails 0-3 in a series is going to come back and win. Now, it's going to take a lot here for the Brooklyn Nets to do it, but you know what? Someone's going to make history. Maybe that will be Steve Nash's message to them. Why not us? But we have to correct a lot of things.
Well, it was electric here at Barclays Center tonight. The Nets fall 6 points short. Let's get the final thoughts of our broadcast team, Ian Eagle and Sarah Kustok.
Chris, the frustration for this Nets team, the fact that this regular season was such a struggle. They got to the playoffs after winning the play-in, and the hope was that some of those troubles would go away. They haven't. If anything, it's been more apparent, and certainly against a team like Boston that has sensational chemistry and a connectivity that the Nets have been aspiring to throughout the season.
And I think we've seen a lot of the same things from game 1 to game 2 to here in game 3. And you can't just assume that because you change environment and get back to your home court and your home crowd, that necessarily changes the play and the strategy and the approach on the floor. And the Celtics had just such a great level of confidence throughout, a composure. Anytime the Nets made some runs, they were able to respond in kind, and doing so at both ends of the floor. The defensive prowess, their ability to really protect the paint, but also get out on the perimeter, make it a challenge, and tough for Kevin Durant to get any clean looks, to do those type of things where he could get going. But it was across the board, and they also, for Brooklyn, couldn't get stops against the Celtics team, especially when needed. And overall, there's a lot of different numbers you could look at, but the big one, points off turnovers, to think about the fact that Boston had, 37 points off turnovers, just shows an attention to detail that wasn't there for the Nets.
When Kevin Durant went 0 of 10 in the second half against the Boston Celtics in game 2, the conversation throughout the NBA, pundits, fans, media, people connected to the league, was, well, Kevin Durant is just going to go off in game 3. He will be a focused man, a man on a mission. He'll go to the free throw line 25 times. This was part of the scuttlebutt. None of that occurred, and there were times where he just didn't look like himself, whether it's just been all the minutes accumulated or the way Boston has got into him defensively and caused him problems, providing that wall. And there's no doubt that this is not the Kevin Durant that we've seen that was so dominant throughout the season when he was healthy.
I think it's a combination of both of those things. And one, you look at the accumulation of the minutes, latter part of the season, trying to even make it into the playoffs, get into the play-in game, plays 46 minutes here tonight. Boston's defense, the fact that they can throw different looks, different coverages with a whole lineup of players that can also individually match up against him with a toughness, with a strength, length, and quickness. And overall, too, I think what I'd love to see in game 4, and mentioned this through the broadcast, find different ways to try and free up Durant, make it a little bit easier for him where you're giving it to him, not just giving it to him to work in isolation against a player and against a wall of other readers and a second chance, a second player that's going to be running at him. And so that's where I'm curious to see if there's an opportunity for more movement, more actions by all players involved with the spacing on the floor, because the way that Boston switches, it invites isolation and invites you to go to one-on-one, and it can stagnate the movement of the basketball. But that is the one way that Brooklyn can try and get their offense going, try and get Durant into more of a rhythm, because so many of their baskets and their points came in the open court and on the fast break. It's been a real big challenge when they have to play against that half-court defense of the Celtics.
And we know what it's been like in the NBA. No team has ever come back from an 0-3 deficit. So at this point, it's not even a topic to talk about winning the series. The only topic is, can you win a game? Can you provide the pride necessary at home to keep this series going and to force a Game 5 to go back to Boston? That's going to be the topic of conversation. Go out, win a game, and then worry about what's next after that.
Yeah, and that's a part of the series. That's a part of the postseason. It's a part of pride. And you said it. When you say pride, personal pride, these are superstar players in Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. These are the rest of the complementary players, prideful players, a lot of playoff experience. What adjustments will be made? Will we see more of Blake Griffin, who provided a big boost, a big energy? What different ways you could look at it? Will Ben Simmons, as it's on track and the trajectory of it, to see him make an appearance in Game 4, does anything change with that, given how this series sits? So there's a lot of things to look at. But to your point, it is about one game, and it's about getting a win, because that's something that matters in the context of what these players have tried to do through the course of this season and to extend their season.
Give a lot of credit to the Boston Celtics. They have looked like a very determined group and a team that very easily